What you want to try to accomplish?
A lot about just getting back to the basics and the fundamentals and technique. Great opportunity to get back and start, working on some timing issues, working on just little things that we thought that over the course of the past, 6, 7 weeks, that kind of fell off a little bit. It gave us a little more time to focus back on there, start getting back to continuity, and just get back to coaching at it again. But that's what bye weeks are for. You got a lot of the younger guys reps as well, and you got a couple days extra preparation for Baylor. So a lot of it was just get back to the basics and the fundamentals, and let's try to get back on track with things.
You talked after the Iowa State game about how maybe Will sometimes could have thrown the ball away in certain situations instead of maybe trying to do too much. Is that maybe the next step in his development and his progressions as a quarterback?
Yeah, and the conversations I had with Will after the game and after we watched it multiple times together, it was more about, he's such a competitor in terms of he was trying to get like a spark. He was trying to spark us at times. And, you give Iowa State credit, they did a really good job at tackling, and things where you've seen Will extend it a little bit and maybe make a play downfield. Those guys were running and they're playing, I thought, a little more harder than we were. And they were tackling well. And they tackled him at his legs a few times where we thought we should get rid of the ball. And that just puts us in tough situations, especially with a team that is a drop A emphasis, and they're going to keep everything in front, where the more you play behind the chains, the harder it's going to be to get those first downs. So we had a lot of conversations about it, and I think he has a good feel and an understanding of, at certain situations I need to just get rid of the ball and live to the next play.
It seems like in the passing game you have virtually three-part protection, getting open and running routes and throwing the ball and making decisions there as far as that goes. When you looked at it, I mean, watching the game, you started to look and say, they're not protecting him, and you go, wait a minute, he had nobody to throw it to,
Right.
and then you said, he's got no chance back there. Was it really a total breakdown like that, where
I
almost
think,
every play after the first series?
Yeah, I think everybody, there's breakdowns. We can never be on the same page. That's why it's such an ultimate team game, where everybody's got to be on the same page. In terms of, the protection's got to be clean, the decision making's got to be clean, the route running has to be, spaced out correctly, and there's a lot of timing too. And I thought in Iowa State it was more of a perfect storm. There's times where we would get open and the protection would break down. There's times where we weren't open, and Will had all the time in the world back there, and he just would extend plays, and it would take a negative play at that standpoint. There was just a lot of instances where we just all were on the same page, and I think that was the sitting down with Dana about it. We all decided that we needed to sit down and get back to the fundamentals and the timing and work with the little things again and make sure that we're clean with that and it doesn't happen again moving forward. But yeah, there's a lot that goes to it, and you can't sit there and point the finger at just one thing. There was a lot of issues that went on, and we know as we sit down, it's this game moving forward. It's about how you respond, and I think these kids are eager to get out there and play for Baylor.
How common is that with the timing? Does that happen over the course of the season sometimes?
It does.
How do you
reset it? There's a fine line that you got to get into with how much you're running these kids. What are you practicing? And we've been pretty decent with passing this year. You had one letdown in the Iowa State game, and there's multiple factors with that. But it was good just to reevaluate everything and just get back to the basics of what we do and make sure that we're crisp moving forward.
Following up on exactly that, what do you do to regain the timing you sort of had earlier in the year?
Yeah, it's more of, you do open field routes on air stuff where, why like the O-line, you kind of break it up. You split up into certain groups, and we were working full field concepts where the quarterback's got to take their drops and go through their progressions and make sure that they're hitting these guys out of their breaks. And receivers, they're making sure that they're spatially aware of what's going on and making sure that they're hitting their depths. That was some of the issues that we had versus Iowa State, is we weren't getting to the depths that we needed to be with our route running. And I thought that kind of threw the timing off on stuff, so it went back to more of the basics of making sure we're doing the little things right, making sure we're getting to the right depths, and making sure that we are going through our progression and the timing matches up correctly. And then on top of that, you have a lot of pass emphasis drills when you're full team, showing different blitzes and drop eight where quarterbacks got to recognize hots and recognize where we can get to our fourth and fifth progression.
Any concerns with Will's confidence after a subpar performance?
I don't think so. I think it's more of how can we do moving forward, how do we respond to this, and how we fix it. And I thought Will has done a really good job in terms of the energy, the body language, how he's been practicing these past few days. And I think these kids are more anxious to get out there on a national TV game with a lot of eyes on them and ready to get back on track and put this game behind and move forward.
Dave, along those lines, you're responsible in games when not the brief amount of time to see that adverse moments. Anything make you curious or concerned or optimistic about how you do respond in between games this time?
Just in between or during the game time?
No, just in between the game. Like you haven't had a loss yet, so like
Right.
close a single loss, maybe like the back quarter or that half. I mean, have you seen anything within games that gives you an idea what to expect? That's probably a better way to ask it here.
I think just moving forward with the adversity part, we challenged them like, let's see how mature the team this is. They got after us. That was a game that was a nightmare by a lot of accounts. And it's how do we fix this? How do we respond? And I think when we sat in here as a unit and we talked, it was more about how can we fix it more instead of pointing the finger and let's get back to the work of just getting back to the basics and getting back to that confidence that we had at the beginning of this year. I think this is a mature team, and I think moving forward, they will have answers and they will respond. And a lot comes down to playing hard, playing with effort. That handles a lot of things. I thought Iowa State was flying around. I thought they wanted it more. And, if we can get that to that point where we match it with an effort standpoint, with a physicality standpoint, that's going to overcome a lot of things.
Can a player have too much information to be too smart? I mean, Will is such a smart guy, and he studies it. And then where does that go? And then all of a sudden you just say, well, just be a ball player. Just go out there and play football. Where's the line there?
There's a fine line with it. You can't give them too much. And that was about going back to the basics and just going back to coaching the fundamentals of each play that we have, each concept. And just understand that checkdowns are good, or, in these certain looks, this is where we need to go with the progression. And it's just good reminders, because there's a lot going on for Will back there. There's a lot going on for any quarterback that's in the game, especially when they're getting hits, especially when things aren't open. They start pressing a little bit. They're trying to make plays. There's not a lack of effort. I'm trying to do whatever I can, and sometimes you can do too much. And it's more about just playing within the system and taking what they give you and lift the next play. And that's the hardest thing to do. I had the same problems with Johnny Manziel at times. You don't want to handcuff how special they are and how they can extend plays, but throughout the course and the flow of the game, if it's not working, then we need to live to the next play and just understand where it's going from that standpoint. That's difficult to do, and that's a lot of pressure on a kid. But he has a good understanding of what went wrong and how you can prevent that moving forward.
Dana said snaps are down this year offensively, and I believe you guys are averaging some of the fewest snaps per game in all of college football. Why do you think that is? Is it just kind of the teams that you guys have played?
Yeah, it's just trying to play complementary football, making sure that we're all playing together and, offense, defensively, special teams wise, making sure that we're getting in the right plays, being a little bit more efficient. I think that's going to change, over the course of these next few games. I think a lot had to dictate just how the flow of those early games went. We didn't get any snaps versus Iowa State, obviously, at 42. Had 4 drives in the second half, which we didn't do anything with. So a lot of that is about us keeping the momentum of the drive and staying on the field. That's going to get us more plays. But we are trying to slow it down a little bit and make sure that we're getting in the best position to let these kids have some success.
Yeah, one of the coaches on the Big 12 call this morning, they asked him about what makes a star, and his answer was something along the lines of takes all 11 guys to make a bad star, that it's not just a great player.
Right.
It dressed out a little bit, but it sounds like all 11 in this last game, nobody could be a star, but they weren't doing that.
Yeah, it's all about everybody doing their job. You know, even if that certain play, it's not the right thing for them at that moment, but like you've got to do your job for everybody to have success. And I thought we were all just off. You know, we weren't on the same page in terms of, you know, each play. I thought, you know, some guys were doing their job and some weren't. You know, and it's a tough deal. It's about building the continuity, making sure that all 11 are working together. And when all 11 are working together as a unit, you know, that's going to end up having individual praise. It's just based off of the effort of the entire group.
Thanks, Jake.